Say hi to everybody. Yeah. It's very stressful today. Hello, friends. Hello, Ronak. Mr. Milk is here to greet you. Oh. Yes. Oh, he's stressed out because people are cleaning out our attic. Yep. It's very noisy up there, huh, Mr. Milk? Mm-hmm. Yay. Food. Dun, dun, dun.
Nope.
He says, I'm stressed out.
Are you stressed? Todrick?
Can I have the big cat? Do you guys want to see the big cat? Sulu, Sulu. You ready for this, guys? Are you ready for this? Ooh. Ha ha ha. This is Dr. Zulu. He's like, 18 pounds and as long as my legs. Poof. Poof. Zulu, how big are you? Oof. Oh, are there too many people? There we go. This, I present a giant lucky cat for you guys. Dun 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 dun.
Wow, it's so big.
He's so big.
He's bigger than my dog.
I believe it. Dr. Zulu is here.
I haven't seen him in so long.
I know. All spring I was teaching in the living room. See, you guys got to see my cats all the time, but I've been relegated to other rooms. So I figured you would appreciate the floof. It's very lucky for taking final exams, isn't it? Yes. Look how stressed out he is, poor baby. This is my cat stressed, by the way.
How can you tell?
Because he's not totally flopped out in my arms. There's a crew replacing our insulation today, so it's like very noisy. It's all thumpy from above, and the cats are kind of freaked out.
Aww.
But he's not drunk anymore, which is also awesome because he had this year, and he was drunk for like a week.
What?
Disturbing.
Oh my gosh.
Have you guys ever seen a cat get a raspberry? Are you ready for this? Ready for this? Are you ready for this? There's Michael boy. See, it's possible. Gentle giant. He's like, okay, can I go now? Maybe. Hi, guys. How was your way too much reading this week? Was it way too much reading as usual?
Mm.
Oh, it was a lot.
Okay. It was okay. Yeah.
Did you guys do, yay, thank you everybody for checking in. Please check in if you haven't. He's a big boy. So out of curiosity, as a default, when I put in a link within a sentence, just like highlighting, he's also very fluffy, highlighting a word so that if you guys wanted to dig more, did you sort of as a default assume that I wanted you to read that whole article, or as a default does it like if you need more information? There's no wrong answer there. I'm just kind of curious what your perception was.
I just assumed that you wanted us to read it because you would put optional if we didn't want to. Like.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Yes, both of those things are true. Like, I was just overwhelmed with all the exciting information there was this last week.
I know.
So what was your guys' favorite video so far this week? Oh, I'm sure everyone's surprised to hear I'm now covered in cat fur, right? Favorite video? Tell me your favorite videos. I've had stilettos. Oops. I need to give him a haircut. I have stilettos leave them reeling stuck in my head from Kinky Boots like all week. Because I watched so many different versions of it to find one that had like the sharpest dancing and not blurriness. Okay. All right. Oh, there's no Seely here today. That's a bummer. Do, do, do.
Does it have to be a dance video?
No.
No?
Not at all. Yeah, anything at all. Tell me what you liked.
I really liked RuPaul's interview with Arsenio Hall because I just like, I was really tired that day when I like watched it, and it just like brought me like so much energy, and like I loved him. Like, or I don't, or they, I'm not sure what his pronoun is.
Him. This is a good question.
Yeah.
Yes. So RuPaul is a man, as he said in that video, and still stands by that, even though that was the 1990s and kind of like how people self-identified was often different in public. But RuPaul is a man, and RuPaul is also the character who he plays in drag. and apparently in the same way that Cher and Madonna are like a one-word title that is their character, but they also go by it in their regular life. Same is true of RuPaul, but RuPaul is a man. Which I was like, I think I need to ask people who know more about drag to be sure about saying that. So I did. I was like, what do I say here? And then, but you could also say that RuPaul is a trans person, even though he identifies as a man and is like I would say in the 90s and into the early 2000s, a lot of the time that would be when you would still use the word transsexual or transvestite, and we don't use those words anymore. They have become not nice words, not polite words. But that's how, when I was younger, that's how you would sort of define things, like someone who's not living as a different gender than they started out with, but who dresses up that way occasionally. Those would be sort of those compartmentalized words, and now we just don't use them at all. So like lots of crazy reading about that, right? Did anybody feel like, oh my gosh, that was so many things to learn at once?
So I have a lot of like queer friends. So I'm very like, I know a lot of this stuff, and it's just like I am a huge LGBTQ IA plus advocate. So I'm just very careful with what I say, especially. And yeah, because I'm always so scared because I don't want to offend anyone, especially if like I don't know. Like, does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm always like careful because I don't want to offend, because I know how much that could kind of like hurt, because it's who they are and they just don't want to feel like, you know, not themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
So did we learn a default? Because there's a lot out there right now that we as a society are learning to not take for granted. So did you learn the default? Ask. Asking is okay. And I think especially if you are around you guys are not even necessarily millennials anymore, but if you're around an early millennial or before, I think it's important, just as we're all being patient with this big and good and necessary societal change, to remember that it used to be rude to ask. So like in the 1980s and beginning of the 1990s, if you weren't sure, the act of asking was considered impolite at that time. And now it's considered the standard of actual politeness, because you're respecting the other person's ability to tell you what they want. But previously it was more like, you've heard this term before for a reason, don't ask, don't tell. So that's a shift that is, hopefully will just give you a moment of patience with people if they are doing something that feels impolite, is that's where we were, and we're changing now to like, just my pronouns are she, her, hers, like what are yours, right? So it's a good thing to just bear in mind that like older people used to think it was rude to ask. Okay, so I'm going to release upon you the poll. I did not prepare a ton of stuff to review this week because I thought most of you guys probably want to talk about reviewing for the final. So I'm gonna let the poll out, and I'm gonna go hunt down maybe one short video that's local that I didn't get time to throw in there while you guys are polling. Sound good? Launch poll. All right. Do, 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 do. Oh, interesting. See, I'm learning something while you guys are taking this poll already. Do,
A woman or a woman dressed up as something that is neither. In the past, drag has always
loved the name Cockettes. They thought Angels of Light Free Theater, okay.
We have 9 of 11. All right, I'm gonna share screen while you finish that. We'll just kind of hop around in here. I have not previewed this, so hopefully we don't accidentally go rated NC-17.
Cockettes, that's what you are, man.
in the past, drag has always been this thing where it was an assumption that it's a man either making fun of or paying homage to a woman. And drag changed in San Francisco. Drag became a platform for people, regardless of gender, to express themselves and to express their art. And so, yeah, you can be a man dressed up as a woman, but you can also be a man dressed up as a man, or a woman dressed up as a woman, or a woman dressed up as something that is neither man or woman, or vice versa.
Cockettes had no rules. They were anarchists, theatrical anarchists.
It wasn't about gay, straight, or this or that. It was about sexual role confusion.
When the Cockettes were first budding around out there in the 60s and 70s, gender was still very much seen as, as binary, as male or female. Today, there are definitely people who are living neither male nor female and don't care to define themselves as male or female, and the Cockettes help revolutionize and blaze that path.
Be yourself. Be real. We have 20,000 or more people in this park celebrating with us because we're all allowed to be who we are. We're authentic in our own selves. We love all the original Cockettes, and we love the new Cockettes who are coming up. The Thrill Peddlers. They're a fabulous group.
In 2008, Sweet Pam had come across the Thrill Peddlers Theater, the Hypnodrome, and she told me and Fayette and Scrumpy, we must see this theater.
And it soon became clear that this was the venue to remount Cockettes shows. A modern day version of what the Cockettes were in miniature at Thrill Peddlers.
I'll buy your wonton, little girl. I'll eat your apples too. Cheer up and don't be blue. I'm here to make you my Oriental pearl.
If there is ever a play that encompasses the aesthetics, the vibe, and the joy and the magic of the 70s, it's Pearls Over Shanghai.
We originally were just scheduled for a month or two to run the thing, but the thing had legs and kept going and going and going. And the run ended up being 22 months.
Master of beyond, let's kiss all your dreams. The tender pale things, forever hold your body tight.
We don't want to copy anybody. We are our own ensemble. And Cockettes are an active part of making this work with us. What it gives you a chance to do, I think, is to feel the material revived and living.
Therefore, be it resolved that the San Francisco Board of Supervisors recognizes and commends the Cockettes on the occasion of their 40th anniversary, the year-long run of Pearls Over Shanghai, the cast, all the surviving Cockettes, and today is Pearls Over Shanghai Day.
Hey everybody, how you doing? Welcome to
to another of our superstar tribute nights here at Tranny Shack at the DNA Lounge.
Dun, dun, dun. That was funny. My high school best friend was in those videos and I just pulled it out of the internet. I was like, hey, look. So that was an excerpt from a little documentary about the Cockettes, who are the dancing and singing group that work with the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence, which is a drag group that does public works in San Francisco. So as well as putting on performances, they also do a lot of fundraising for LGBTQ issues and supporting people in our local community. So I didn't get a chance to put our local stuff into the reading and watching for this week. So I wanted to just swing by that for a hot second. And I'm excited because I didn't realize how long the Cockettes have been around and part of our society doing works. We really focused on ballroom culture in our readings this week, which is like Philly and New York City and very East Coast. And so for next time, I'll give more representation that's local. So that was also cool because you got to see the Thrill Peddler show called Pearls Over Shanghai, which is like if you took racial stereotypes and exploded them to 100 gazillion Fulfillion Chichillion, that right? Were you not like, oh my God, what are you guys wearing? This is a little bit not okay. Which is part of what I want us to talk about, right? So we've talked so much this whole semester about stereotypes, flipping stereotypes, and by the time that we get to LGBTQ and drag culture, there's like flipping the stereotypes of flipping the stereotypes going on, which is pretty much what is in Pearls Over Shanghai, and you can agree with it or disagree with it. I'm sure that there is nothing but gray area there. So throwing that into the discussion mix. Oh no, you guys, this does not look like the right poll I just gave you. Dang it. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna fix this. Sorry about that. I have to share it and stop sharing and close and find the right poll. Sorry about that. Here's the correct poll. Let's try that again. Okay, so one of the things that I was doing before our meeting today was looking over, I'm not done yet, but looking over your answers for the midterm questions. And so a lot of these questions in here, some of them have to do with this week's reading and making sure that you guys understood some of the big titles and ideas that we read about. And then the other thing is for me to give you some hints about some of the things that folks were not very clear on in the midterm when I was grading them. So my plan for today, the rest of today, Wednesday, is to finish tidying up the final exam, and I will release it by tonight, and then you'll have until Sunday night to finish taking it, yeah? But I thought it would be most helpful to make sure we went over big ideas and to give you guys a chance to ask me some questions about those big ideas before you take our final. The other thing that I'm going to do, which is weird. Wait, are you guys able to take the poll? I don't see anybody has taken it yet. Yeah, okay. The other thing that I'm gonna do that's weird is that I'm gonna divide the final exam into 2 parts. So I'm gonna put the multiple choices as one part, and it'll say like part A, and I'm gonna put the essay questions into a second quiz as part B, because it makes the grading work better, because otherwise I can't put rubrics in for specific blah, 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 a back end thing. But just know that there will be 2 quizzes that make up the final exam, so they'll be in 2 parts, just so nobody's freaked out about that. Okay, oh good, I see answers happening, yes. Yay. Cats. What was your favorite video this week, Mr. Milk? Steele, what was your favorite video? Do you have, this is not a real question, this is a by the way question. If any of you guys are, or your families are contributors to KQED, our local public radio station and public television station, you can see all of the West End version, I think it's the West End version of Kinky Boots on the KQED Great Performances website right now. And it won't be there forever, but like the whole 2.5 hours of the whole thing is on there, and it's really good. I definitely recommend it. Yeah, if you haven't seen it, do. It's so fun. The other thing that's on there that I really love is 42nd Street, which we watched some of earlier, but that wasn't what I was going to say. I was going to say Holiday Inn is up on Great Performances KQED, which is one of my favorite tap things. I meant to show you, but we ran out of time. There's a whole tap dance segment in Holiday Inn where they're tap dancing with Christmas garlands as jump ropes. And there's like, it's so fun. So fun. Anyway. 2 of 11. Where's the rest of my voters? Erica, Rafe, Ezra, Alyssa, Teresa. Bum, 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 bum. 3 of 11. Yay, we're almost there. I got some complicated questions in there, you see. I was like, ooh, this is not a really have a one answer making sense here. Cool. Yay, 5 of 11. Okay, good. Oh, I'm feeling good about my question choices. Okay, good. Oh, good. I'm excited, you guys. I'm asking questions that people are not answering the way that I was hoping them. So that means that's good that we're going to review this stuff. Ooh. I'm excited about the opinion ones being really divided. That's cool. 9 of 11. All right, last few. Calmo. Poor birdie. Okay. All right. One more. Is there any more? Is it you, Maggie? Okay. I'll wait for you. No problem. She's like, wait. So I'm going to start talking about the first one, but then I'll let you guys see the answers in a second. So the first question is, what does a source of dance movement refer to in this course? So I saw a lot of you guys answering in your midterm with, because it was asking for a source of movement for the lineage section. And so a lot of you used the word source to mean style. So a style of dance would be like jazz dance is a big, huge style of dance that we've been covering, right? It's like the giant umbrella family tree of jazz dance. And then there's jazz funk, and there's tap, and there's hip hop, and there's all of these branches that come off what's generally related to as jazz dance. So what I mean in this course as a source of movement when we're talking about a dance lineage is really like an ancestor of the dance that you're watching. So when we're talking about Bojangles doing tap dance up on his toes, then we're talking about buck and wing dances that were, and like flat foot that came 10, 20, 100 years before, or like the stomping movements within the Zulu African dances would be a source dance for tap dance that happened later. And then like tap dance movements without the taps in a Bojangles performance, for example, might have influenced later on the suave little uplifted dance movements of Motown, which is a source movement for, oh, come on, brain. I just had Bruno Mars. Bruno Mars's style of it, which is like a renewal of old Motown dances, right? So a source dance in this course means something that's earlier in the lineage of that dance style. And a style would be a sort of a category of dance moves. So like we talked about last week, for example, we talked about skirt dances, which would be like can, or that really tacky ruffle thingy, Betsy Ross dance. But also you could say that perhaps flamenco is a skirt dance, or folklorico is a skirt dance, because they all have in their movements the action of making shapes with your long skirt, right? So tap dancing is all about footwork, basically, but you have the metal taps on them to make noises. So you have flat foot, you have the really, you have a source dance for tap dance, which would be Irish step dance, which is super bouncy as opposed to super down. And then you have like stomp or Savion Glover styles, which can be both of those things, hoofing and downward, or bouncy, or a melange of all of the above. Yeah. So the source is a dance move or series of moves that comes earlier. So think of it as like an ancestor to whatever dance you're talking about. And yes. Okay, so gender. Oh, I can end the poll and share the results with you now. There we go. Sorry about that poll confusion. I apologize. Okay, so number 2, what is gender? The internal feeling a person has about their personality. That is the correct answer. The way a person dresses or acts is called their presentation. So you can present whatever gender or not gender that you want to present, but that's, the term is presentation for how you dress or act. The way a person feels attraction, so if you are attracted to the same sex, different sex, in between sex, all sexes, any gender, no gender, in between gender, all gender, that's called your sexuality. Yeah, so gender is how you identify your sort of personality and internal feeling, and it is on a spectrum. It's not A or B, it's everywhere in between. And the same is true with your sexuality. We used to say mostly straight or gay, meaning heterosexual or homosexual, and now there's all in between. So for example, when you talk about the word bisexual, it used to mean that you liked both, that you were both heterosexual and homosexual. But now that word is getting phased out because it's being replaced by the term pansexual, which means that you like all the genders in between as well as either end. Yeah. And then the type of body a person has is called their sex. So if you have genitals that look a certain way or the other way or in between, which are all of those things are true and possible and happen in nature, that's your sex. So sex is the physical form, gender is the emotional internal sense, presentation is how you show it off. Yeah, you can correct me if I got any of that wrong while I was spilling it out. Yes. Okay, we got a thumbs up. All right. Number 3, yay! That's good. 70% of you were on the money. When is a transgendered person finished with their transition? And the answer is whenever they dang well please. Yeah, so I think sometimes when we meet a transgendered person, we might assume that they want to go all the way through multiple surgeries to switch all the way to another gender, and that is just not necessarily true. Lots of people live in all sorts of ways. I think we see that a little bit more here in San Francisco than in stereotypical gay culture and stereotypical trans culture that we've seen in media has really been presentational about like a person who is trans wants to flip all the way to the opposite sex that they were given at birth, but that just isn't a reality or a desire for lots of trans people. Lots of people are very happy being in between. Lots of people have surgery, don't have surgery, take hormones and have surgery, don't take hormones at all, do like any of those things are totally valid, and it's up to the individual person where they want to end up. And that might change over the course of their life. Okay. What are the sources of movement for ballroom culture? Dun, dun, dun. And So if I say ballroom culture, it is fair to be confused because there's also ballroom dancing, right? Like competitive ballroom dancing, for example, or waltzing used to be the thing that we thought of in terms of ballroom dance. But generally, people will say ballroom dance instead of ballroom culture. So that's the thing to look for if you're not sure which thing I'm talking about. So by ballroom culture, I mean the dance competition and what's the term there for like when you walk down the runway showing off your character in ballroom culture? That competition within the gay community is what we're talking about when I say ballroom culture, as opposed to ballroom dancing, which would be like waltz and tango and foxtrot and all of that. So the number one answer, not from what I got from you guys, is actually supermodel poses, right? Because the first thing there that we saw, ballroom culture started with like basically extreme modeling and voguing, and those came from supermodels that they were imitating as part of their imitation of gender flip. As ballroom culture developed, it gained more and more and more of the dancing that we see now. So now you see a lot of what is currently called flexing, which I don't know, which is so much of flexing is hip hop, turfing, some dance hall elements, mostly Vogue, because Vogue is what gave us whacking, which is the super fast flingy arms, and tutting is definitely like straight up voguing, but just a little bit more like boxed in. So none of these things are incorrect, actually. They're all correct answers, except maybe early jazz dances, which oddly enough was one of our biggest responses. There's not really any tapping in ballroom culture. I'm trying to think if I saw any examples in anything we shared this week. But it's mostly supermodel posing, which is really awkward. If you've never tried to do any modeling, just try it sometime because it's not comfortable at all. Model walks, so it's like strutting down the runway. Cakewalks, I threw that in even though nothing said that because I think it's kind of an interesting truth, right? If you think about what cakewalks were 100 and 200 years ago, it was people making fun of really privileged other people's walks in a way that was entertaining that eventually they embraced, right? So originally it was the slaves making fun of the plantation owners, and it became the slaves' own dance, and it was like a wink and a nod to how ridiculous the foppy rich white people were. And that is actually kind of true about voguing and drag walks. They're making fun of who were mostly white supermodels at the time. They weren't all white. There were definitely some great examples at that time, but there's like this simultaneous making fun of it and making it your own thing that happens in both movement styles. You can agree. I just made that up, but I was like, no, I think there's something there. Flexing for sure, yes, but I think that's a really new term. And dance hall elements are definitely in flexing. So if we think about dance hall, there are a couple of elements. Let me just run through some sources, right? Because we're talking about sources. So dance hall, when I think of dance hall, I think of two things. One, I think of the cipher shape that we saw in breakdancing, which is related to ring shouts. So you have the group of people around who are helping with the pulse of the rhythm and cheering on the intermittent soloists who come out and do solos. Then we also have the twerking from Mutwashi dances and other West African dances that use lots of pelvic movements. And those are sort of the two main things that I always think of when I think about dance hall, like, right? There's more in there, but I'm gonna move on. Asian fan dances, nobody chose that, but I did think about this briefly last night when I was wrapping things up, is that where do those fan movements come from? Because fans are really, have you guys seen those totally awesome fans that you flip open and they have like a message on them, like throwing shade? Where do those movements come from? Are they from Asian fan dances? Because that's a thing. Are they from like court dances of Louis XIV in France? Are they from flamenco fan dances? I don't know, but somebody could write a paper on that. Okay. High effect juxtaposition. Our answers. Oh, it makes me so happy to see that 80% of you nailed this one. Okay, so high effect juxtaposition, just to remember when you're answering questions about this, it's not just that two different things exist, right? Because the counter example is Black Swan, White Swan, right, in Swan Lake. The idea that two opposites are on stage together looking different is not exclusive to it. That's not what makes it an Africanist element. It's the way that those two opposites are being presented without transition, without clarifying why they're opposite, so that it is either ironic or shocking. Like in Swan Lake, we know that there's a nice girl, and then eventually we know that there's a bad girl, and we see all of the characters responding to each of them, and then they do moves like back and forth. Yeah, so in high effect juxtaposition, those two characters might be presented doing the same moves in two different ways without any explanation at all. Or you might have like a female character doing a bunch of dance moves in a way that is maybe classic jazz dance, Broadway jazz dance, and then a drag queen doing the same moves, but without any explanation about why they're so different. Or maybe the drag queen is doing them in a way that's really quite funny and like makes fun of the silly things that seem natural when we expect them from a female body, but seem blown out of proportion when they're done in a drag presentation that's supposed to be over the top. So it's the high effect part of the juxtaposing, not just that there are opposites. Okay. Number 6. What is it that people say about second and third, fourth wave feminists fight about? So in the quiz a couple of weeks ago, there was a question that was malfunctioning. That was a matching question about first, second, and third wave feminism, because I just built the questions not well. So I went back through and gave points where, because some of you got marked wrong accidentally, so I gave more points back to that question last night. But it was clear to me that it was a little bit blurry, the difference between second wave and third wave feminism. So second wave feminism, think like 1960s, 1970s, their goals were economic equality. Yes, we're still fighting for that. We still don't have the Equal Employment Act passed in this country, which is ridiculous. And a woman's right to work and a woman's right to contraception and especially abortion. So that was mostly second wave feminists. And at the end of second wave feminism, a great debate started, which turned into the transition point for third wave feminism. And that conversation was called the sex wars. And it was like, is pornography okay or not okay, became the discussion that flipped us into the next generation of feminism. So the thing that second wave and third wave feminists argue about, if that's true, because you could also just say that, you know, there's a spectrum of feminism from conservative to progressive, is this question of whether being a slut is okay or negative. Yeah. So that does play into whether or not pornography is ethical. All feminists agree that a woman should be respected at work. And I would say almost all feminists agree that a woman should have a right to an abortion, because 9 months of physical torture is very real to me right now. Like, this is no joke, carrying a baby. So whatever you feel about anything else, most feminists agree that a woman's body is her own. And this body that I'm in right now, it does not belong to me. It belongs to my daughter for the next few months. There's many more things to discuss about that, but I'm going to have to pull back. So this question, the difference between second and third, fourth wave feminists, is the question of whether it's okay to present your sexuality publicly, to embrace sex positivity, right? Sex positivity is generally what we think of when we think of like third wave feminists. Second wave feminists, we're looking at work equity and the right to choose. And their failure spot was that when it came to feminists of color in the 1960s and 1970s, and this is still true today, that the issue of like, do I have the right to go and work is not an issue for a woman of color in the 1960s and 1970s. They always had to work because they didn't have a place of privilege that the white women who were leading the second wave feminists did. And so that is also a rough spot, but that's that one chunk, second wave feminists. Third wave feminists is sex positivity, gender equity, and like, we're not sure whether we're in the fourth wave or not, but that's where the fourth wave starts, is this question of like, is a trans woman a woman? I hope after all this week's reading, we're pretty clear that the answer there is yes. But I feel like that's where we get into fourth wave if we're officially in fourth wave right now. Okay, and number 7. Which of these terms do you feel confident in describing, defining as I have taught them in this course? So if you didn't guess that this was a hint for what to study for, we're definitely covering these terms in your final exam, yeah? Move step, most of you feel pretty confident about. That's like a kickball change would be a step, for example, or a body roll would be a step, for example. So it's usually like one chunk of movement. It can be polycentric, which is to say it could be that your head flip, like the, oh, what is it? The bend and snap, for example. If you guys have seen Legally Blonde, where you bend and snap, you could say that that's 2 movements, but generally speaking, we would call it like a move because it's the 2 things together. It's one little chunk. A phrase of movement, as I define it and as I taught it in this course, is generally approximately 5 moves together. It's about 10 to 20 seconds long. And if I ask you for writing about a phrase of movement, I want you to write about those 5 moves and give me like a Laban element for both. So an adjective for both of them, right? She did the bend and snap, the bend and slap. Oh man, that's different. You could do the bend and snap in slow motion, for example, where you bend down really slow and you arch your back all the way up and then you make them wait for the snap, right? So that would be a move plus a Laban element. 5 of those together makes a phrase of movement. A dance. Now this one's hard, right? Because dance does have different meanings. So it could be, a dance could be, now people say that a dance is a move a lot. And I find that very confusing. So take, for example, the twist. Yes, the twist is a dance that people do on the dance floor. But it's basically like one move with some variations, but we call it a dance. Foxtrot is a dance. It's based on a basic step with variations. But also a dance could mean a dance video, 4 minutes of choreography. A dance could be when we go to a party that the whole point is that there's a DJ and a dance floor. And a dance can be an evening length show. So if you're not clear about that, it's because it's not clear. So, ask. A style of dance, we talked about that earlier. So a style of dance is going to be sort of a specific way of varying a set of steps, right? So we could have Bojangles created a very uplifted and elegant style of tap dance. Tap dance in general is a style of dance, and there are different sub-styles within that, right? Hip hop is like a great big blanket. Inside of hip hop, we have, jazz funk where it overlaps with jazz. We have crumping, we have turfing. Those are all styles of dance. They kind of overlap with the word term, but they all have, I think a lot of people think about a style of dance having, often it has a similar emotional content or flow or speed with a certain set of steps. So if you're talking about crumping, it's super aggressive, super hard, super fast. But if you slow down those movements, it kind of, like crumping in super slow motion starts to look similar to dance hall because they have rooted source moves and they're enacted in different ways based on the rhythm and the speed and the mood. Okay, so we did source and movement. We did dance lineage is when you're looking at like the original community dance steps and then they get modified in the next version of them as they get taught, like a telephone game, and then they get done publicly and people start to compete and refine those movements, and eventually those people become masters of those movements and they start teaching them to other people and giving them names and codifying them. And then we end up with like a dance style that's in a studio that is really clear what it is. Really clear in quotation marks, yeah. So that would be like a dance lineage. So when we're talking about looking forward and backward in time and giving some credit to the original steps and the modifier choreographers in between. Laban elements, looks like we're pretty good there, about half and half. It's good to review those things. So that's body, which is how many bodies in the room, what part of the body, and whether those bodies are like separate or if they're leaning on each other and joining together, making one body at a time. Or if you have a bunch of people working in unison, you could say that that is one body. I wouldn't quite say that's a little bit vague, but you get the feeling, yes. Time, meaning speed, pace, variations in speed and pace. Space, meaning horizontal, vertical, and depth are your axes of Laban elements. And when you're talking about space in terms of Laban, and you say that there's a formation, always tell me what shape that formation is. And it's a nice thing to think about it if you just think about looking down. Like, are people standing in a circle if you were looking all over them? Or are they a bunch of lines? Are they lined up in a bunch of lines? Are they in windows? Are they spread out in depth? Are they clumped together in little clusters? So that would be space, time. Effort is how much energy is being put into a move, and it can be obvious or not obvious, right? So like a ballerina, for example, is holding themselves in such a way that they look really light and effortless. That would also be true of Bojangles and Fred Astaire and Broadway jazz with that uplifted torso. It appears to be easy and the aesthetic of cool where you're like just smiling the whole time, but you're like coated in sweat. So the way that effort appears versus how it's actually happening can be two different things. And then there's also like soft movement versus hard movement versus soft hard movement, and all of those in between qualify as effort. Okay, we got time, we got space, we got body, we got, what am I forgetting? Effort, that's it, right? Space, time, body, effort. I think that's it. Something about listing them all at once, right? Okay, so I'm gonna move on to number 8, and then probably at the very end I'll be like, oh my gosh, that Laban element. Okay, so opinion. Now this one's just for fun. I don't think that there is an answer to these last two questions that is set in stone. I think we are, as a society, discussing this right now. Number 8 was, in your opinion, are Asian hip hop groups appropriating Black? That was supposed to say dance or culture, but it got cut off. 20% of you said no. 20% of you said it is appropriation unless they are learning from Black teachers. 40% said it depends on if they're doing a fusion of styles. 10% said even if they're doing a fusion of styles, it's still appropriation. Oh, look, we got a lot of things cut off in this question. I apologize. I don't know why that happened. And 10% said yes, just hard yes. So this is definitely a debate that's going on right now. Not so much about the Asian hip hop groups, which are super popular right now. If we think about all the K-pop, J-pop, Jabberwockies, like there's just, what was the other example I saw in the midterm used? The heels dance group from the Philippines. This is going to become, I think, a topic of much debate over the next 10 years because we're talking so much about Black Lives Matters right now and about appropriation in terms of hip hop culture, this is going to be a debate. So where this debate has definitely been going on lately over the past 10, 20 years has been in belly dance, in the belly dance community. So belly dancing comes from both the Middle East and Near East and North Africa. It comes from a bunch of those areas. And there's also often elements smooshed in from India, as well as Turkey, as well as Africa. So already it is seen as a fusion of styles, and there's different pockets within it. I am not an expert on this by any means, so forgive me if I get part of these things wrong. But since the early 2000s, there's been this thing called tribal belly dance, which is generally like that people are taking different elements of belly dance that they like and mushing them together in order to make new works. And there are varying degrees of acceptance of this practice, but then there are also like just not okay things going on. For example, not to call out Russia, but to call out Russia, there's a lot of belly dance stars coming out of Russia who are doing what they're calling fusion belly dance, but they're doing it with a theme of a performance that is absolutely a racial appropriation, and sometimes it goes all the way straight down the line into blackface. So that's obviously racist. Let's be clear about that. But there's also things like, I saw a video of a whole festival where the whole point was bring your solo performance of belly dance, and the theme is nations of the world. So there was like a Turkish act, and there was a Celtic Druid act, and like meanwhile they're doing body movements from a Near Eastern traditional culture, wearing clothing from an Indian dance outfit with the costume add-on and makeup from like another white culture layered on top of that. And the question is, what is a fusion versus what is hybridity? And we touched on this a little bit at the beginning of the class, but the idea being that like a fusion, that's what you call it when you have all these layers just stacked on top of each other, is pretty appropriative, because it's not really, it's just like making a collage. And it can be done from an absolutely innocent and admiring place, but that doesn't mean that it's okay. A hybrid dance is when, if you think about that example from the musical Pioneer Square, where we had the Irish step dancer and Master Juba living in the same place, becoming best friends and dancing together, and eventually out of them, and this was a fictional story, but like because those two dancers collaborated together, they created a hybrid dance that was tap dancing, that was made because both parties were equal contributors and working together. There's no good answer for that stuff, but I think it's important to remember when we're watching all of the dancing that's going on in very popular hip hop right now, that like those questions are sensitive to people, and we take them for granted because it's so popular right now and because we love it. And just because we love it doesn't mean it's not appropriative. There's the end of that story. Number 9, this is also an opinion. Is drag culture appropriation? And I left you multiple choice on this one because I feel like this is, especially starting out with the Cockettes video at the beginning, there's a ton of different answers here, and it depends on the act. It appropriates the opposite gender culture. 30% said yes. No, those people are the opposite gender. Again, 30% said yes. Like, I think both of those answers can be true depending on the drag performance and depending on the person performing the drag, right? Like, if you think about pre-vaudeville, it was illegal to dress in drag, and men who were not transgendered would absolutely dress in drag and blackface in order to make fun of Black women. Full stop. In that case, yes, it's absolutely appropriative of the opposite gender and of the other race. Is that true now? Sometimes I think that drag characters are purposefully doing stuff that looks like an appropriative act in order to flip that stereotype of a stereotype on the head. And so I don't think there's a simple answer, which is why I was like, go crazy with your opinion over here. It appropriates hip hop black culture, 30% again. It appropriates supermodel culture, 20%. I would say yes, but like, here's the caveat. Is something appropriative if the group that you are copying is the group in power or the group of privilege? And generally appropriation, as opposed to imitation or copying, is defined as the culture of privilege taking from a culture that is not the culture of privilege. So if the dominant culture is white supermodels, which it still is, then you can't, it's like the just debate over reverse racism. It doesn't exist because it is the dominant culture and it's not taking from something. It is that culture that is being pressed on everybody else. It's sort of, does that roughly kind of make sense? So that one was a trick answer. Yes, no? No. The silence means no. So let me go down to, is drag culture appropriation? It appropriates ballroom culture. I would say that's an interesting question that I don't know the answer to for the last one. There are plenty of people in drag culture now who are actually of the lineage of ballroom culture. So in that case, no, they are authentic practitioners. They've learned from the original practitioners of ballroom and they're doing their version of, they're the young children, right? So, but are there not also maybe people of privilege who are doing drag culture who are impersonating or appropriating people not of privilege or who originally came from the ballroom culture? Perhaps so. Yeah, no easy answer there. So as for the idea of whether the person of privilege can be appropriated from, by definition, I would say that's not true. That the person of privilege's culture is the dominant culture that's being impressed upon everyone else, and so you can't appropriate that because it's already being pushed down on all of the minorities that are not getting as much privilege and exposition as the dominant culture. So that is a gray area. And it's good to know this, guys. In your written essay questions, if something is a gray area and you don't feel certain about answering a question yes or no, tell me why you don't feel certain, because you absolutely get points for that. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop talking and just to ask you guys to ask me any questions before we head on out. Dun dun. Oop. I'm unmuting you guys. Okay. Since the final is divided into two, how much time will you get for each? Ooh, that's a good question. I hadn't thought about that. My intention was to leave you sort of 2 hours altogether. But I think the multiple choice part is much faster than the longer part. So I'll probably, I don't know, but when you go to the opening page before you click start, it'll tell you how many minutes you have for each one. Bye, Azrahita! So probably I'll give you most of the time on the essay questions, like an hour and a half on the essay questions, and then some extra time for the multiple choice. That's the plan. The essay questions are going to be 75% of the total score. So like out of the whole final total points, 75% of that will be the essay questions and 25% of that will be multiple choice. You are welcome, Alyssa. Any other questions? Mm-hmm. Okay. If you guys are all good, then I will go make your finalized, and I am hoping to release it by later tonight. Yes, Ronak, this is the last meeting. Dun, dun, dun! You made it! Yay! And then I believe if you look at the assignments page, I believe everything closes, I want to say Saturday or Sunday. It's on that page though. So if there's anything that you didn't get around to doing that's still available, turn it in late. Yes. Yeah. So the final will be due probably tonight or tomorrow, but there's no late penalties on anything. It's just like, that's when I'm pointing at you to go for it. So I'll open it tonight. It'll probably say due tomorrow, but it'll be available until Sunday. Thanks for the good question, Anthony. And you're welcome, Keely. Any other good questions? If not, we can go. You're so welcome, Erica. Have a good weekend. Congratulations. Almost done. Almost done. Almost done. Bye, Keely. Bye, Rafe. Bye, Alyssa. Bye, Joanne.
I have a question, but it's not about this class. But if not, I don't know if you're busy or not, but is it cool? Okay. So I was planning to actually take the modern dance class, but it like what's it called? It kind of, okay, so
time conflict?
Yeah, time conflict. But I have to talk to my counselor about it, and because I have to like sign a form or something, and I have to talk to you about it.
Yeah, you'll really be talking to Gary.
Yeah, because now I know that it's Gary. So do I just talk to him or?
Yeah, I was wondering that because I just started getting emails about my fall classes and like how they're gonna work, and I was like, oh, because my email address is still gonna be up on web schedule this whole time.
Yeah.
Thank you, Teresa. I'm glad you had a fun time. Yay. It's a good question. I seen a cute animal being carried around behind you.
No, that's a baby.
Oh, it was a baby.
That's a baby.
You must have had like a blanket trailing down. It looks like a cattail.
Yeah, she just woke up, so it's like.
Yeah, I would ask Gary because I understand from what he was telling me about the other classes he was teaching this summer that what he does is he pre-releases recordings of the choreography, guys, so that you can start working on them on your own, and then meets with you synchronously to give you notes and feedback.
Okay.
So that would suggest to me that you're not meeting synchronously all the time, but you might be meeting, I don't know, it's normally 3 hours a week. So maybe you're synchronous 1 out of 3 hours a week, but I don't know. It's totally up to him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yay. Anything else?
I
mean, I would say that if you are really making that decision, I would ask both instructors.
Okay, because I think I'm like closer to you in a way than I am with like my other it's my English teacher, but like I don't know, I'm just kind of shy, so I'm just
no. It's there is a spreadsheet that I've seen on the faculty end where which I think you guys are supposed to be able to see, that tells you whether a class is synchronous or asynchronous. And so I think you can ask your English teacher what their plan is too, because they might be doing something in between, because, we're all just making this up.
Yeah, because I think he's doing like asynchronous, because we never had any Zooms like from last semester. So that's like how I was able to actually do your classes on Zoom. So I guess, I don't know, I don't think he's doing.
Yeah, so that's the question you want to ask is like,
okay,
is your class going to be synchronous or asynchronous? Because I'm thinking about taking another class at the time that might be a little of both, and then you'll know. And then when you fill out that form that you have the two teachers sign, you want the asynchronous class to be class number 1, and the synchronous or like possibly synchronous class to be number 2 is the easier way to fill out that form.
Okay. Wait, what? Sorry.
Like, don't stress out about filling out that
form.
I
won't. It's just like, I was just kind of worried about like the whole making up the time thing. Yeah, it's just, but then I was just like, it's fine, because I don't know if I'll be babysitting next semester, but so if I am, then I'm not going to do the modern dance, but if I'm not, then I'm definitely doing modern dance.
I would, it should be so much fun.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I could. But, I don't know. I'm hoping to get my body back by Christmas. My goal.
That's your goal.
Yeah.
Well, you got this, girl. You got this. Like,
it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like, at the moment, I can't do stuff because my hips just go out.
Really? Is it hard for you to do yoga?
Like, it's really hard for me to do. I basically like am on ice for the whole rest of the night.
Really? Because you look like you're just breezing through it. Like, you know?
No. It feels good at the time. That's the thing. Like, I'm all full of endorphins like you guys are all the time. And I walk out and I get like 40 more minutes of just being like, yay! And then all of a sudden I realize that like for the past 2 hours, my SI joints have been out and my whole spine has gone out of whack, and I like have to do adjustments and then like sit down on ice for the whole rest of the night.
Yeah, it seems hard, but
yeah, it's weird in ways that I hadn't expected. Like,
and it's your first time, right?
I still, yeah, this is my first time being pregnant and carrying a baby all the way, and like the one weird thing is that your joints don't hold together properly.
Mm-hmm.
That's weird. And the other thing is that you can't really breathe.
Yeah, because they're like,
she's up in my diaphragm, or like,
yeah,
I just don't have full lung capacity. And then the other thing is that I really think that you know how when you work out you like get all full of endorphins and have a fabulous time, and then you go home and you feel tired, and then the next day you feel sore, and your body rebuilds those muscles, and then you come back again, and it's great. I don't think that my body cares very much about rebuilding my muscles for me, because it's got better things to do. So like recovery time is just doesn't make any sense at all. So those are sort of the big things that for my body, my experience, age 40 are like
40.
Yeah.
I did not, you know, when I first met you, I did not think you were 40.
Well, thanks.
That's a compliment.
I mean, I had some amazing teachers when I was young, who were in their 50s, who were like just broke all the rules about age expectations for me. So I hope I'm on the right track. Baby time?
I don't know. Oh, crap.
Is she eating out of the box back there? Hi.
Okay. Sorry. Hey.
Cute.
You want to see her?
Sure.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna turn off recording. Hi everybody. Happy Easter.